In the last video, we set up this painting matrix. We had taken a group of sections related to painting, water repellents, and wall coverings, and put them into this matrix to receive bids from the subcontractors. The matrix is put into the system. You'll notice that there is an asterisk next to the word painting in the name of the matrix. That means that this matrix is using a preliminary number, one or more preliminary numbers, to come to the solution in the matrix. To add a bid into the matrix, I'll click in the first available vendor's name row and start typing the name of the company. If I got a bid from Protex, then I could type that in, and then I would get the closest match. As I continue to type. Pressing the enter button will add Protex Painting to the matrix. Now there's information in the vendor record about Protex that is also following this vendor into the bid file. Let's say, for instance, that Protex's bid is $99,000, and I'll type that into the bid total. Press the tab button to go to the first section, which happens to be painting. Now you can put an asterisk into this section. It would mean that this section of work is added into the bid total as part of the bid completeness from the subcontractor. If I press the space bar, it'll put an asterisk into that cell and move to the next cell over, which happens to be the cell that would indicate the inclusion or non-inclusion of the water repellent section. I hit the space bar, and I have now included water repellents in the subs bid. And by reading the subs bid, I see that also includes the wall coverings. So I'll hit the space bar again, which will put the asterisk into the wall covering cell and take me to the notes column. And what I can see is that Protex has a lump sum bid of $99,000, including these three sections. And as soon as I finished putting in the wall coverings asterisk, the matrix solved, and Protex became the winning bidder at $99,000, including all of the sections in the matrix. Now the matrix can compare a painting-only sub to a painting, water repellents, and wall covering sub, and compare that with a water repellents and wall covering sub. So it can come to many different combinations or solutions for the matrix, highlighting the lowest path to create a solution for the matrix. Protex Painting has information about their company in the vendor database. If I highlight the vendor's name and right-click, I can do different things with this vendor. I can insert bids above or below it. I can delete the bid. I can edit the vendor data, edit the type of work that they're doing, which would display in a subcontractor listing filter, apply the bid to a DBE type, or put in a partial DBE, a bid amount, applied to the subcontractor. If I click on the Edit Vendor Data window, I will immediately go to the vendor record in the bid vendor database, in which case I can make edits to Protex Painting, which would change that vendor's record. During the update of the master vendor database from this specific bid vendor database, those edits would be transferred into the master vendor database. I'll close that window and move to another matrix to show an additional element to adding a bid to a matrix, and that would be to the analyzation of the scope items. Switching over to the mechanical matrix by clicking on the mechanical tab allows me to review the mechanical matrix and see that I have 2 sprinkler bids and 6 lump sum bids that cover gas piping, plumbing, and HVAC. I also see in this matrix a total scope adjustment column displayed, showing the total amount of the scope items that have adjusted the bid amounts by the total amount of all the scope items used to adjust the subcontractor's bid appropriately. Let's say that I receive a bid from Lewis Mechanical. I can go to the first open row, type in LEW. I will get a closest match, which is Lewis Mechanical. I can press the enter button and now proceed to put in the bid total. If Lewis Mechanical was not on the list, I could just continue to type in the name by itself, press the enter button, and it would not be selecting a vendor record from the bid vendor database. I could then fill in the information for Lewis Mechanical as a new company that I'm adding to the bid and subsequently eventually adding to the master vendor database with their detailed information. Those additions would probably be done after bid day. Let's say that Lewis Mechanical gave us a lump sum bid amount of $770,000 that was inclusive of the gas piping, plumbing, and HVAC like the other mechanical bidders bid. If I tab over to the gas piping and I hit the space bar, it's going to put an asterisk in the cell and it's going to automatically pop up a scope items worksheet. This scope items worksheet can have one or multiple scope items that will allow me to adjust the subcontractor's bid based on issues of scope. Here, if I uncheck the hookup fees as not being included in the subcontractor's bid, I'm going to generate an adjustment amount of $4,000. I can change and have a specific adjustment amount just for this bidder if he's indicated the amount that he's willing to do the work for on his fax. I'm going to accept and close, and that's going to move my cursor over to the next cell, which happens to be the plumbing cell. Again, I'll hit the space bar to put an asterisk inside of the plumbing cell. Now I've got the scope items list for the plumbing section. I can now uncheck core drilling and get an extension of $3,000, accept and close. I'm in the HVAC column. I'll hit the space bar. That will bring up the one scope item for testing, adjusting, and balancing. I'll hit the space bar again to accept no changes. And my cursor has moved over to the notes column. The matrix has resolved and Lewis Mechanical is now the low winning bidder. Now the bids don't always come in order from low to high, but you'll notice that these bids have been grouped. I can grab Lewis Mechanical, drag their bid, and drop it up at the top slot, ordering my bids from low to high, giving me the opportunity to review the fact that I have many bids that are very tightly grouped together for the mechanical work. I also see that I only have 2 bids, even though they're close, for the sprinkler systems. Now this is our traditional horizontal view where the vendor's name is in the row. The sections are in the vertical columns. We can rotate this matrix 90 degrees and show what we call a vertical view by going to the toolbar and clicking on the vertical view button. This will change my view so that I see the sections and the scope items in the rows. I see the subcontractor bids in the columns. This allows me to rapidly identify which scope items of work are being used to adjust the subcontractor's bid to come to a complete bid amount. You can see that Lewis Mechanical is the low winning mechanical subcontractor because of the green highlight. You see the total amount of the adjustments from the different scope items, the original bid, the total adjusted bid, the matrix total, in which this case includes the sprinkler bid, the premium to use this sub, which is 0 since they're the low sub, and a premium percent. So in order to switch to stir it as the winning bidder, or forcing them in, would cause me a premium of $6,000. This view represents our vertical view and allows people to look at the scope issues more closely. We can preview what this will look like in a report, print this report out, and use it in a presentation or as a review mechanism for this matrix. I'm going to close this view, and every time I put in a subcontractor bid, the matrix will resolve to see if that is a new low winning bidder. if I were to get a call back from Fairway and he changed his bid to $755,000, I can input that bid, hit the enter button, and that will then resolve the matrix to give me a new number. And that will become the adjusted number. Screwed that up. In the mechanical matrix, you have two things working to your advantage. Number one, you receive the scope letters the day before the morning of the bid that help you analyze the list of scope items that need to be added to the scope items worksheets for the sections. You can add and edit the scope items worksheet by highlighting a section and picking the Edit Scope Items worksheet. You can change and add these on the fly, or you can set them up all at one time. Also, the other factor that you have is that when you have a bid that comes in the last few minutes and the scope is already set up, you can adjust that bid just by clicking on the bid total and typing in the value. So let's say that it's 3 minutes till and Fairway called you and changed their bid to $760,000. Just by highlighting that number, retyping in the 760,000, the matrix will resolve, and what we'll do then is it will add the scope adjustment amount to the bid and resolve, and now Fairway is the low winning bidder in the matrix. In the next video, we'll look at how to adjust the bids to fit your bidding pattern, the gotchas that are in the bid, and how to manipulate these bids so you have the correct winning subcontractor based on your judgment calls, remembering that every time you put in a bid, PrimeBid does the math for you and solves and keeps the system and the bid organized in a fashion that you would expect.